grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hello. This is the replacement for our main Twig show since it's been 5-6 days, maybe 7 days of podcasting every day, watching many long, some boring, some exciting, but mostly boring press streams and information sessions for all of the Summer of Gaming or Summer Games Fest and E3 coverage. It just wasn't going to work out to have a main show because news-wise, it was all going to be gaming news anyway. So what we've done here is we've got 3 reviews that have been sort of ready for a bit, in some cases, and some more frequent or more recent, actually, that we'll be showcasing here. And then we'll have a couple other reviews coming from Birdman and myself on the first regular show back this coming Monday. So depending on our scheduling, this show should be dropping, and you should be seeing this and listening to this right now as of Friday morning. So we will see what comes next. But in the meantime, here are our reviews that I got lined up for you. We have a roundup of some Mill Creek releases, some that were DVD, some that were Blu-ray. They had a whole bunch come out that were newly licensed from other companies that had been, out of print for a while. In some cases, they've been out of print since like the HD DVD days of a while ago. And then we've also got a couple game reviews, one of the Persistence Enhanced Edition for PlayStation 5 and Neptunia ReVerse on PlayStation 5 as well. So a couple games and then a package of movies. We'll probably throw the Mill Creek ones in the middle just to break it up, game, movies, game sort of thing. And I guess I'll come back at the end quickly and explain what's going on the site. Schedules can be subject to change, but we have a general idea of what's coming up for the next week or so.
Basically using geeks.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
Just a quick review here of the Persistence Enhanced Edition for the PlayStation 5. I was sent a review copy to check out. I had not initially heard of the original version of Persistence, but it has its roots originally as a PSVR title. And I didn't have a PSVR. To be honest, we only had at one point one crew member that had one. So this being a version that works on the PlayStation 5 with enhanced visuals and other features that also works as a standalone game that does not require the VR headset was appealing to me to check out. And it is a roguelike space horror thriller adventure that you'll end up looping your way through, first-person shooter aspects, puzzle solving, very atmospheric. Pretty neat. If you think, with all the buzz right now, it's on Returnal. Think like first person, a little bit slower paced, more deliberate, and not as bullet helly or anything. But if you're thinking of like horror space vibes, that's the sort of idea behind this. It's got an interesting loop. I'm not usually a big fan of roguelites to begin with, but this was not too. this wasn't as punishing as I thought it was going to be, and it was a little easier for me to get into and enjoy, which was a big plus for me. Now, it was really, really impressive when it came to they added ray tracing effects to everything and still like locks it at 60 frames per second with ray tracing off, but with it on, it was like somewhere in 30 to 60. It seemed to be pretty consistent, and because you're moving in this game a little slower than you would in like a fast-paced action game, you can really take time to look at all of the ray traced, reflections and lighting and everything. It's just much more immersive from what I can see of the previous version to this upgraded version. They've also added the haptic feedback for the controller to get more advanced feedback from the DualSense. There is a bit of an oddity in that there's some parts of this where you're like, okay, I can see how this was specifically made for VR, and it translates, I would say, about 95% well to being a standard game without a VR headset. But this is one of those examples of a very well made upgrade for the current gen from a game that might have been missed by a lot of people in the past, but now with all the fancy ray tracing and a lack of a ton of games yet on the PlayStation 5 library, it might be one you want to check out. And I was doing a little reading, and apparently the company that developed this, Firesprite, is rumored to be working on a high-profile PlayStation VR 2, or whatever the next generation of PlayStation VR is called, for the PlayStation 5 platform. And I can see that if this is sort of maybe a template, they were like, hey, let's upgrade a previous game that is, and make it non-VR, and make it so that we can really get a hold of what the PlayStation 5 hardware can do. If they could translate this game or something similar to this into PSVR 2 with like a higher frame rate or something, or just getting a hold of that ray tracing. Imagine ray traced VR titles like with the power of that system would be pretty amazing. So it's worth checking out. I'll put a link in the description to it, and maybe give it a go if you're a horror fan.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Alex here with a roundup of the newest releases from Mill Creek. I'm setting some aside very specifically to discuss more in depth at a later date, but we have a bunch of re-releases that I wanted to mention just off the top that turned out to be pretty good. They're nothing as far as like new features. They're just reissues of Blu-rays that have been out of print for quite some time now. They've done some 2-packs. So if I'll just sort of explain which ones they are right now, just to get them out of the way, and whether or not they're of decent quality, because some of these I've seen before on previous releases that were actually released in using the MPEG-2 codec back in the earlier days of Blu-ray, it's standard fine for Blu-ray technology in 2005 and 2006, but it's technically the same codec that they used for DVDs, which didn't hold up to scrutiny on detail, and the prints they were using back then when they were transferring to digital was kind of rough. So some of these are visual upgrades. So we've got Finding Forrester, Contraband, Alpha Dog, Safe House, and there's a 2-pack of Miami Vice and The Kingdom, as well as another 2-pack of The Adjustment Bureau and The Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd is actually... my point of reference for it is I had the HD DVD. Yes, the HD DVD back in the day, and this is a lot better than that single layer 15 gig copy, because I think the movie on there was like 6 gigabytes of data, and the rest was special features. This is at a higher bit rate, and it's clearly much better quality than the HD DVD version was. So it isn't that they just slapped an old transfer over, and that goes for everything else here as well. The only new release that they had on DVD, which looks decent, it's a horror thriller film called Pasture, and as far as the movie itself, it's like a 6 or 7 out of 10 for the type of genre that it is. Visually, it's a decent dual layer, it's actually a single layer DVD, which worried me initially. I was like, oh man, that's not enough data for a DVD. But because it's filmed in CinemaScope ultra wide and it's a modern film with really good compression technology applied to it, it looks pretty darn good. It's rough to watch a DVD like that on the big screen, because I got a 65-inch TV that it tries its best to upscale, but it actually does hold its own fairly well. It's a decent little thriller horror film that I think is part of a new initiative where they're getting at Mill Creek some of the new releases before anybody else does. They're not just licensing it from somebody else. They seem to be the actual distribution platform for some of these first run features, which is nice. And the rest of them that I talked about there were Blu-rays. All of them are pretty bare bones. Some of them might have a theatrical trailer, or they'll have their surround soundtracks lossless. They are, in most cases, visually indistinguishable from the original versions that were previously released through the original pressings, except for a couple key cases where, like I said, The Good Shepherd, what else? Finding Forrester, and I think it was Alpha Dog, which had HD DVD releases. They're clearly new transfers at a higher quality, so those are worth upgrading if you're... Well, I guess it's hard to play an HD DVD nowadays anyway, but they are worth upgrading or collecting for your collection. Now, the other two I want to talk about here a little bit more is... I like when they put out these multi-disc editions of a particular actor that they have licensed, because sometimes they'll get things that aren't all from the same company. Because let's say Universal or Sony comes out with a set. In this case, we've got Van Damme, and we have a set for Bruce Willis. When they release them, it'll only be movies that they own from their library. Whereas here, what you'll end up with is Mill Creek sometimes has licenses from a few different companies. Like they'll have blanket licenses, so we're getting mixed releases here. So for the and these are DVDs, so expect DVD quality, but they are good quality DVD transfers. So for the Bruce Willis collection, it's an 8-movie collection. They spread them out. It's 2 movies per disc, each one on its own layer, so you're getting decent compression because there's no other special features. It's straight up movie, the whole disc. You have a mixture of TriStar Pictures, Sony, Columbia, which is all the same, but then Universal in there as well. So it's cool mixing them. It includes Sunset, Hudson Hawk, The Whole 9 Yards, Mortal Thoughts, Perfect Stranger, The Jackal, which is one of the better movies I think people forget exists. That's actually, on this set, probably the best movie to watch. Alpha Dog, as well as Mercury Rising. And on the Van Damme set that we have here, it's an 8-movie set. This is great if you're looking for, just a weekend of binge, pop on a bunch of movies. Sometimes action movies look better when they're in lower quality or like standard def. Like, back in the day, sometimes I would prefer to watch the VHS copy of a movie over the DVD simply because it gave a certain feel to it, especially if it was like an older 80s or 90s action star. But maybe that's just me, but that's the aesthetic I kind of like. So for this set, it's another mixture, again, of Columbia Pictures, TriStar, Sony, and Universal. And there's the Street Fighter movie, The Quest, which is basically Bloodsport, but on a higher budget. Maximum Risk, Double Team, Knockoff, Universal Soldier: The Return. I'm surprised there's no Universal Soldier 1, but you don't really need that on here. Second in Command and The Hardcore. Some of these are his direct-to-video movies. Second in Command and The Hardcore. Universal Soldier: The Return was the last major theatrical movie he did before his semi-comeback after his sort of semi-autobiographical drama that he did, and then appearing in Expendables 2. Knockoff is the film where it's him and Rob Schneider trying to stop bombs from being sent in counterfeit items from Hong Kong. It was political, having to do with the handoff of Hong Kong to the Chinese government. That came out in 1997. It also has the other 1997 movie he did, Double Team, which is Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dennis Rodman trying to take on Mickey Rourke in one of the most ridiculous, over-the-top action films of the 90s. Maximum Risk is action, but a little more thriller. He plays himself and a twin of his twin that was separated at birth, who speaks with an American accent because it's another actor talking, who he gets mistaken for his twin brother who gets killed, and there's thriller stuff happening. Then the quest, as I said, is the Bloodsport, but on a much higher budget with Roger Moore, James Bond in it. And Street Fighter the movie, I'm pretty sure everybody knows Street Fighter the movie, where he plays Guile. Good sets overall, especially if you're looking for something just to pop in the TV, or like these are like ones you pick up and you want to keep at the cottage. So they've had a fair bit come out in the last month that we were sent, and it took me a bit with all the E3 coverage and things going on just to watch and critique individually. In most of these cases, because there are a lot of re-releases from Hollywood, it's not a matter of reviewing the actual films, it's reviewing how the discs are, if they are adequate. And I'd say that they're all of good quality, in that we're not dealing with something where they over-compressed anything or any mastering errors. So you're good to go on there, and some of these have been out of print for quite some time. So just having them in print and, in the ballpark of $10, $15 a release is pretty good. As far as other ones that we're going to talk about on subsequent episodes or other episodes of the This Week in Geek's main flagship podcast, is they sent over a DVD of Problem Child and Problem Child 2 together in a pack. We also received a new Ultraman disc we'll be taking a look at, as well as the Critic, the complete series, which has been repressed on DVD since it's been out of print for years. And then there is also Sonic Boom on Blu-ray, Season 1. It's going to be a bit to check that out. So in the next week or so, we should be having the coverage of those come out, and I'll give my thoughts, because I've never seen Sonic Boom and some of these Ultraman stuff. It's always interesting to check them out. So that's going to do it for this roundup here of the individual releases. There's some good stuff in here, especially if you're fans of releases that have been out for a while.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
Our friends over at Idea Factory International sent a review copy of Neptunia ReVerse. That is the PlayStation 5. This is their first PlayStation 5 release. I guess an enhanced version of a remake that came to the Vita of the PlayStation 3 game that I remember playing when it first came out, when there was that big explosion of a lot of JRPGs coming on the PS3. And I remember at the time thinking it was pretty good. I'm not going to go too deep into the gameplay here or the review of the story or anything, because this is it's probably been talked to death by pretty much everybody else, because again, this is an enhanced version of a remake already of a title that is pretty well known in the RPG world. So what does Neptunia ReVerse add? Like, why should you pick it up if you're a fan, or will this be something that helps entice a new player? I would say yes, and that it's worth picking up. It's not going to blow you away with being like some sort of magical, like, oh wow, they've now entered like this crazy realm of high-end AAA, like magical, hundreds of millions of dollar video game. Like this isn't a revolutionary ground up remake. Like this is not going to be like going from Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation to Final Fantasy VII remake on the PS5, for instance. What this is the definitive way to play the original Neptunia game. It has all the enhancements and tweaks that they added when they redid it for the Vita, but at 60 FPS locked 4K native. I've been playing it, never drops once. It is super smooth, and that in itself lends to having more anti-alias looking graphics. There's less jaggedy lines. There's not any hiccups when playing, like graphically or anything weird looking. It loads super fast off the SSD. We're talking a few seconds to go anywhere. It retains the same features that were in previous versions of the game, where if you're accustomed to the actual story, you can skip or have fast forward for a lot of the text and dialogue and just get right into it. It's had some quality of life upgrades. They've added the ability to utilize the haptic feedback, as well as some of the adaptive trigger stuff, especially for it's like a fishing mini game that was included. Which is pretty neat. They've added, what else was there that I noticed? Big thing was the SSD, that it was super fast for loading, which, not that the previous version of the game was slow or anything, but it's a noticeable, like, wow, this is a fast loading game. The haptics were used, and then there is that mini game I was talking about, the fishing one. It adds a bit to it because you can unlock some stuff, but it's not going to be like something that pulls you in for hours and hours. But it's cool that they added some extra stuff to it. Now, as far as, is this worth picking up? If you've already played the Vita one to death, if you got a PlayStation 5, probably. It is a nice first go from Idea Factory. I can see that this was, probably one of those, hey, let's just put something out and see if we can get it to run well, and then in the future, we're probably going to start seeing more titles that are either cross-gen, some PS4 stuff and then PS5, or they might just jump headfirst into PS5 as more consoles come out. And if this is how it's going to perform with the engine for some of their games coming in the future, if we get more Neptunia games, I can only see it getting like even more advanced and taking even more advantage of some of the features of the system. But this is a first go. For a first go, this is pretty darn good. I would check it out.
Those magnificent bastards. Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's going to do it for this quick TurdOrTreasure review edition. We have some idea. The goal is, if we can get people together this weekend, we are going to do our roundtable discussion of E3 and probably drop it. If it's possible to get people together on Saturday, hopefully we can then maybe drop it right on Sunday. And if not, probably early to midweek. We don't want to have it conflict with another show that comes out, but I'm assuming, based on the amount of stuff that's out, and that was talked about at E3 and all these shows, it's probably going to be a couple hours roundtable discussion, because you've had podcasts with me solo, me and Ken, and then me, Ken, and Birdman. We might have somebody else, I'm not sure, pop up for the roundtable, but it's really going to allow us to give a deep dive into our thoughts, and as we've had a few days at least away from the events to let things settle in and sink in. So we'll have that roundtable discussion. We, as far as other programs that are regular, I'm not sure when we're going to be able to get another Sunday Funnies out. Usually we try to, it's right now been sort of once a month is the goal, to get at least one out. Problem is timing with E3 and everything else. So it may be something like in the next few weeks we'll see an episode, but it's all going to depend on, honestly, on me, because I know JT is probably ready to go pretty much whenever. It's just I'm going to need a bit of a break from podcasting since I've been doing most of the stuff solo lately, and just hours and hours and hours of E3. We're talking, if each podcast is about 40 minutes to an hour, that in itself is a 2-hour process. not including editing time, and then the fact that we're watching 5 to 8 hours of press release videos and conferences and reading up on articles every day for like a week. It's like, holy moly, it is the busiest time of the year for us, even if it doesn't necessarily seem that to the outside. So as far as other programs, there's very likely, again, scheduling notwithstanding, we are probably going to have 1 to 2 episodes over the next month of Loose Cannon, and I know we are going to be talking about, I know for sure the first episode we record, we're going to be doing Night of the Comet and, was it Night of the Comet and what's it called? Nightbreed. And then for the next one, I've got a few things in mind. It's just a matter of lining it up with Aaron on this. And of course, we've got plenty from Aaron and Darlene. They're going to be having, I've been editing a lot. I've edited probably 20 or so podcasts and have them scheduled to go. Right now, I think it's still every Wednesday for Earth versus Soup for their classic discussions on 50s and 60s sci-fi. But eventually, I think it's as of July or maybe a little later, we're going to be moving it to a Tuesday and Thursday 2-pattern because they're pumping them out. They got plenty. We've got enough probably until October as it is right now. And because they're a fun listen, because there's a lot of movies in there that I've never heard of that I'm just like, oh, I'll listen to the podcast. I'm like, damn it, now I got to go watch this. or go, oh, okay, I have to avoid this one. And then we do want to get back to doing Future Imperfects with Steve over at the Geekcast Radio Network. It's just, right now, there's not a whole lot Star Trek-wise. Birdman is still off recovering, and I'm assuming that once, like, the Orville starts up, we'll probably do a themed episode here or there. It's just, again, lining up all of our schedules has been rather daunting. We're still in the midst of COVID up here, especially in Ontario. We're still waiting on second doses of vaccines. The rollout's been weird. So there's a lot going on in the periphery. But we still are going to have our regular main shows every single Monday, unless it's one of these where it's like a super busy week, and then we ended up just having a review show because we don't have time to record the other segments. But that's beside the point. As far as anything else coming up, we will have more syndicated episodes with our friends at Nerd Third Power. I will actually be guesting on the E3 panel that I guess their round table with Dr. Gonzo, and I'm not sure how many other people or he's got co-hosting it, but he reached out and said, hey, would you like to be a part of this? And I said, hey, yes, I would. So we'll see what comes from that. That's, I think, in a week or two. I'm not sure when he's going to release it, but that should be fun. And then I don't want to talk about E3 until we hear something from Sony, or we start seeing the middle of summer stuff in July, like the Nacon press event, and then there's one from Annapurna, which I'm assuming is going to show off Stray, the kitty cat in the future PS5 game. And then I think there's the EA Play there, and then we got Gamescom. But, you know, it's been... June is a busy month when it comes to gaming, and I'll be happy that's sort of bookending my talk on it for quite some time. So that's going to do it for this show. Just a quick, easy Friday morning listen. Expect more content coming, and if we're inspired, we're going to have even more. Birdman says he wants to come back, I think, pretty much full time. Once he's having a operation procedure to I think fix. He'll probably describe it better on one of the shows, but he had when he had his gallbladder problems, they put a stent in, I think at 1 or 2, to open up his common bile duct that was blocked, and that was what made him very, very sick before it was done. It's what gave him damage to his liver, and he was in rough shape. Like, we're talking like scary, like it was when he had his amputation. Scary. And he's recovered from the liver problems. It's just, and the gallbladder's been out now, but they still have to go in and remove the stent. So once those are removed, he'll probably be off for another week or so, just recovering from that. And he said he wants to come back, I think, the second week of July is sort of his goal, to be like a regular person on. He'll still have segments here and there. He's going to record reviews when he can. He probably won't be editing, but, he'll give me the reviews and I'll edit them and put them in. He'll probably give an update. He is going to be a part of the roundtable discussion, you've already heard that he's a part of some of our E3 coverage. But he'll be back to his old bird self come midsummer. And when that happens, we'll probably do some episodes together. And sometime in August, I'm going to take a break like I did last year. I'll probably take a couple weeks off and just handle the background duties of posting the episodes. And that saves me a bunch of time of hosting duties. We'll do something like that. But that's looking a little farther into the future than I want to necessarily discuss right now. So that is where we are sitting. That's sort of the state of the union. And we will be back in either a couple days or Monday for sure with the main show. So until then, I don't know. Should I have a different sign-off? I usually just say like bye-bye or talk to you later. Birdman has his be excellent to each other. Maybe I'll go with that for now, and we'll think of a new catchphrase for me to finish it off with. So until then, stay safe, everybody, and be excellent to each other.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
Lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.